Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Sarbanes, is now recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, for this important committee hearing. As we've been hearing, the American Rescue Plan provided critical resources to help communities stay strong, to recover from the coronavirus pandemic. In my district, for example, these funds are helping to hire and retain school bus drivers in Anne Arundel County, expand broadband access in Baltimore City, provide rental aid and food distribution in Montgomery County. So it's really been felt positively across my district. As members of the Oversight Committee, we work, as you know, to identify and prevent waste, fraud, and abuse of taxpayer dollars. And we have to balance this effort to get the aid out broadly and as flexibly as we possibly can on the one hand, with accountability for how those dollars are spent on the other hand. And in the state and local fiscal recovery funds, there are safeguards that were put in place to make sure that these investments, these historic investments, are being made wisely. Judge Moore, what must states and local governments do to receive their allocations? In other words, what do they have to present in order to have those monies flow?
Thank you for that question. You know, one of the things I think that we maybe have missed is that, you know, the final Treasury stand-up did not happen until May 10th of 2021. Counties had the opportunity until August 31st to identify projects. And if you identified, and you certified for those funds by July 15th, by the way. So if you certified by July 15th, you had a report due on August 31. Many of our counties across the nation we're still waiting for states to stand up their programs so that they would know what opportunities might be funded by state funds through ARPA versus using their direct allocation. For that reason, not a large number of counties had submitted their request for funds or their plans. So I think that's part of why we're seeing some small numbers in that first report. However, since then, 99% of all counties have done so and have their first half of their allocation. We know that counties with populations of 250,000 or more are required to post on their websites what they're using the funds for. So when we think about transparency, that's a component that I think is very important. And many other counties are doing it willingly on their own, listing what their funds are being used for. One of the things that occurred to us was that during the negotiations with the $360 billion, when the local aid, $350 billion, when the local aid dropped out, the total bill spending did not go down. The $350 billion did not increase the overall passage of the bill, according to our legislative leaders. So I would suggest that decisions made at the local level, closest to the people, were the most efficient. And I think as we see this play out through the years, we will find that these counties made wise investments into their community. They're very broad. In some cases, it's more about workforce. It may be about childcare. In other communities, it's infrastructure-based. But I think that indicates that the flexibility at the local level, and especially in the $10 million exemption for lost revenue, that we'll find that communities allocated the funds best suited for their local community, where they are elected by the people and where they know that community best.
Thank you for that description of the process. I mean, obviously combining flexibility in terms of where the funds can flow on the one hand with accountability, as I said, is important. You indicated there's an initial certification of the need that has to be presented, and then the states and localities have ongoing compliance reporting that they have to do to demonstrate how these funds are being spent. And I understand as well that there's a community input component that the states and localities in particular are being asked to assess the community's feeling about how these investments are being made. Mayor Woodard's, briefly, because we're running out of time, why is it so important that governments are accountable not only to Congress, but also to their communities when they make these expenditure decisions.
Well, I think, as I just mentioned earlier, that nobody knows their needs better than those who have them. So our ability to engage with our local communities, to assess and to be really clear about what's important to them, just like you give the authority to us to make the decisions because we're closest to those, then we then pass on that opportunity to engage with our communities to make sure that we are providing the right programs and services to address their needs.
Thank you very much. I yield back, Madam Chair.